Everyone loves real estate stories, but not everyone knows how wild and crazy it can be. Want to know what actually goes down when trying to close a deal? You're in luck, because you're listening to Real Estate Real Laughs, hosted by Valerie Fitzgerald and Bob Hurwitz. Get a good dose of stories and laughter from industry experts who have seen and done it all. Get behind the scenes and be privy to the high-end luxury market. Enjoy refreshing takes from fellow industry insiders and celebrities. Tune in and get a front row ticket to the unseen and hilarious side of real estate with Valerie Fitzgerald and Bob Hurwitz.
Welcome everyone to today's Real Estate Real Laughs. I'm Valerie Fitzgerald.
I'm Bob Hurwitz.
And we want to thank all of you for tuning in each week. It's been just great. A big shout out to our listeners in Europe and Asia. Each week we try to bring you funny, interesting, and crazy stories about experiences that we've had. So we've got a really great guest today, don't we, Bob?
Yeah, we got a great guest. He's just a real deal maker. It's Gene Leoni. I've known him for many, many, many years. We've done deals together, and he is hilarious. He's a real world agent, a total deal maker. And it's great to have him here. So he'll have some interesting stories to share with our audience for sure.
Thank you, Bob and Valerie. Appreciate it.
Gene, so you understand a little bit about our show. Our listeners love when we're funny. We've got crazy, unusual stories, all things that kind of happen behind our real estate curtain. And let's have some fun together today.
One more thing I wanted to share. On a previous podcast, one of the stories I talked about was when an agent was presenting an offer. We used to present offers in person, and the seller just left the room, and that was Gene Leoni, who was the agent. We're sitting there going like, where is he? And then I'd hunt the guy down. He was asleep in bed. So this is Gene.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And I'm looking at Bob going, what's happening here? It's like, but I mean, Valerie and Bob, you understand that my expertise was Bel Air and Holmby Hills. So when I started doing that area, there was probably only a 10% turnover rate at the time. Very little homes were selling. And, like a common experience for me would be showing a vacant house. Now there's a lot of levels of vacant houses. Some are fully furnished and vacant, but this one experience I had, it was an abandoned house for probably 10 years and there was boards on the windows. So the only way to get in the house was we had a crowbar open the window in the back and then crawl through the window and then walk around with a flashlight. So I had these clients. I said, I don't know if we can sell the house, but it fits your description of what you want. So I
based on the board
couple, and we go and we crowbar in the house, pitch black, and there wasn't anything salvageable in this house. And we're walking around, and I'm thinking, oh my God, there's cobwebs, there's everything going on in the property. Probably were animals or whatever. And we're there for about a half hour, and the people say, I love it. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Because I'm like going, okay, I just knew it was an abandoned house. So now I got to figure out how to sell it, where the owner is. So I get out and we write up something. I track down the owner, and the people bought the house at a great deal, and they remodeled it, and they have been there ever since. And I have brought them offers that were outrageous offers. They love the house so much. And that was a good experience. I mean, but it was funny. I mean, they bring it up all the time. I mean, how do you show a house that's boarded on all the windows? It was like they screwed all these boards like it was like tornado coming through there. I mean, it was
right.
It was nuts.
And who has a crowbar in there along with them on a show?
I bought it at the hardware store on Westwood Boulevard. one of my tools for showing real estate, like a flashlight and a crowbar.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, that was the thing. I mean, I thought about it when Bob said, hey, you're going to talk about things. There were so many houses at the time that were just abandoned.
So were they not listed at the time? Like when you showed that wasn't actually listed, yeah?
Wasn't even listed. I just knew that it was abandoned and falling apart. So I figured
that's a proactive agent.
That is a very proactive agent.
But that's kind of the way I did my deals. Most of the deals were not even on the market. But
so you were ahead of this off-market stuff, right?
The off-market stuff, yeah. But then I had a client who I sold numerous homes to, and we went to a vacant house, of which I thought was vacant and tear downish and all. And he happened to be, very wealthy guy, young guy. And I go to him and I said, hey, let's just walk around the property. He says, hey, Gene, we got to get inside. I said, okay, no problem. I've done this before. So we rip open the window.
Oh my God.
And he goes through the window and I'm following him in the window. And then the alarm goes off.
Oh no.
And I mean, we're racing for the window. We're diving out the window because, I mean, he was a prominent guy in Bel Air. I mean, if it would have been on the front page news and the police would have come up, it would have been like, oh my God, man, we're trying to rob a house in Bel Air, It's like, and I'm thinking, I'm looking at him going, hey, we can't do this anymore. My heart's racing. But it was, that was pretty funny. I mean,
Did you ever have any unusual requests? Like whether it was from a buyer or a seller, they for due or find them?
I don't know about unusual things. I mean, like for example, I did a deal. The woman had was separated or whatever, and she had a very good trust fund that was, monthly alimony that she was getting.
Trust fund, I like that.
Yeah, and so I started showing her houses. Little did I know that the amount of money she was making per month was all she was making. So even though the amount of money was probably 6 figures a month, you didn't have the down payment to go buy a $4 or $5 or $6 million house. I didn't know that. So I show her a property in Lower Bel Air, which was a great property. And she says, Gene, write up the offer. And I said, fine. And I go, we'll need 20% down or so. And she goes, I don't have it. I go, you don't have it? I go, well, she goes, but I'm making a lot of money every month. So I thought about it and I went to the listing broker and I said, can you ask the owner if they will take jewelry as a down payment for the property? Broker gets back to me a couple of days later and says, yeah.
Wow.
So they went over to Van Cleef and Arpels, and she came up with probably, $15 million in jewelry, maybe.
Oh.
And because jewelry is discounted when you want to sell it.
Right.
She wasn't selling it, but she held it in a bank account or a vault over there.
Right.
And they gave her 30% of the value or 20% of the value as a deposit. And she got a loan and she lived in the house, and I told her not to sell the property. But a couple of years later, she had an offer for $2 or $3 million more. And I said, just don't sell this property. But she did. And she was happy. She moved down to Newport Beach, and that same property, the guy who bought that property from her, I think he traded it for 20 some million dollars. And it was it was a great piece. But I thought that was kind of funny.
Oh, that was very creative. That really amazing to go for the jewelry. That was really smart. How did you know she had so much jewelry?
Her ex-husband.
Because of who she was married to.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of closets. Yeah. She had a property that on the third floor, each closet was Saks Avenue, Barney's.
Like a boutique.
Just for the clothes.
Yeah, like a boutique.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was pretty crazy.
We get to see amazing things, don't we? I mean, we're really into people's lives, personal lives.
We do. I mean, and they trust us. A lot of people, they allow us. I mean, even though they're worth a lot of money, they still put their pants on one leg at a time and they tie your shoes. I mean, they're just normal people. They just have a lot of money. And, talking to Bob, I mean, that's what makes all these things seem crazy, but it was normal. I mean, it was like, people living in a Bel Air hotel for 10 years. I mean, who would do that when they owned all the property across the street? And it
Yeah.
just, but that's what they did. I mean, so it wasn't unusual to meet those type of people. So,
one of the things, Gene, that we've talked about before, Valerie and I, with other guests as well, is how you really don't know, because it's such a diverse group of people that we deal with. Some people look like they have a lot of money, but then they really don't. Other people, look broke, but they're loaded. And the thing that always blows me away is how people make assumptions that the people, because they own a giant house or they're driving a fancy car, especially in LA, where it's like, so much phony stuff going on, that they have a lot of money. And in fact, they don't. And what kind of blows me away, and I've gotten laughs over the years, from when a client who you assume is really wealthy wants to borrow or get the agent to pay. I've had clients, I mean, pretty famous people, call me and go, "Hey, my money didn't get wired in from the UK. Can you pay my $20,000 mortgage?" I go, "No." I mean, it's like, it's just weird. Have you guys had that happen where your client will like call you and say, "Hey, can you give me this money or whatever for whatever reason, or loan them money, so to speak?"
I haven't had the loan the money thing, but I have had them want me to pay for things, like during the process of buying a house, pay for the furniture or pay for the couch or pay for, donate, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 to the deal. I mean, I've had very wealthy people ask me to do that, which is, always kind of surprising.
Do you give them the money?
Mean,
yeah,
it
usually
happened to
you
me,
do.
Bob. I lived in a house when I was going to UCLA, and the people that I live with, he had a limo driver, and every time he had a meeting in the house, everyone had to vacate the house, and he had a butler and all this kind of stuff. And so I graduated. I started doing real estate. Through the years, I started doing well. And out of the clear blue, this guy who eventually didn't live in the house anymore, he sold it. He calls me on the phone and he says, "Gene, how you doing?" I go, "How you doing, Mr. So-and-so?" Because I always respected the guy, because I looked up to this guy. I mean, he had a limo, a driver, a butler, a great house. I mean, it was like, wow, that's what I want to be like, right?
Big lifestyle.
The lifestyle. And so, my dad always said, if anyone wants to borrow like 25, 50 grand from you, just run for the hills. You're better off asking someone for $1 million rather than 25 or 50,000, because it's just a blinking light. So he brings me to the Westwood Marquee, and we go into this private restaurant area, and he sits down and we're talking, and then he brings out this crumpled envelope with this like letter. And the letter said that he had like $175 million in a bank account in London. And he said, "Gene, this is really confidential, but here's this banknote there." And I just, for some reason, I can't get it out. And I like to borrow, my dad's like knocking on my brain going, "Gene, it's trouble." So my response said, "Not a problem. I'll lend you 150,000, but give me the title to your Aston Martin convertible," because it was a great car. And his response was, "Oh, I don't own the car. It's in my daughter's name."
Right.
And it was like, end of discussion. I said, if we do the car, I'm all over it. If not, I can't do it,
Right.
And I just realized that it was all smoke and mirrors with this guy. It was crazy. And I looked up to the guy. It's just, it's sad in a lot of ways, but you learn.
Definitely learn.
Yeah. Eventually you'll get milked. I mean, the thing to me that's kind of weird, and, Valerie, you said you'll contribute, some money and stuff. To me, it's like, if you're an agent, okay, we get paid based on success, how good we are at what we do. And I've had sellers say, "Hey, I'll take over a list." And they'll say, "You'll pay staging, right? You'll pay for like the previous agent did." I go, "No, that isn't what I do. I will get you the highest and best price for your property, but I'm not going to pay for staging. I'm not going to pay for artwork. I'm not going to bring cars into your garage." It's like, hire the best person, whether that be me or somebody else who you think is better, to represent you the most professional and gets you the highest and best price. Or if you're the buyer, gets you the lowest price. But don't ask an agent. This is just me speaking. I know a lot of agents do that. I'm not trying to denigrate people. Everybody has a different business model. But I always think, you know what? It's like my job, my professional job is to represent them to the best. So they come out the best they had, not to pay for stuff. I know agents do that, but anyway, I'm just curious. Is that kind of, are you seeing that, Valerie, more of that? Because
Oh, I'm seeing it even more so now because the inventory is so tight. The inventory is so tight, and it's such a fight that the cutting the commission, and I'll pay for everything. And yeah, no, that's 100%. I come up against it all the time. So
Well,
now I've got a few staging companies where they'll stage it and get paid at the close. So
right.
I can work with that. But, in terms of forking out 30, 40, 50 grand to stage it and pay the monthly and do all of that just to list a property, no.
I mean, Valerie and Bob, I totally agree with you. I mean, I tell the client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, that I've never lost a deal over a commission. I'm always there to make the deal happen. But you can't negotiate a deal when there's not a deal on the table in regards to the commission or what you're going to do. And I just kind of say, listen, we're like business partners. I mean, you're trying to sell a $10 million house. And if I can get you $10 million, then I'm well worth it. If we start talking like $7.5 million or $8 million and you're losing money, hey, I feel for you. I'll do the best I can, but don't start negotiating the commission. And they do it all the time up front. It doesn't make sense. I mean, you negotiate it when you have something on the table. I mean, a lot of brokers, it just takes experience. I mean, until you lose a deal and until you get beat out on a listing and get a listing and all that kind of stuff, you just don't have the experience. And I never could understand that when I started. But I mean, we're still learning. It's craziest thing. I mean, you do deals nowadays and it's like, God, I never heard of that before. I never was in that situation before. I'm like, it was nuts.
That's a great point that you make, Gene, because the truth is when especially with the type of properties that we deal with, I mean, they're usually very expensive properties. There's a lot of commission there. If something comes in that is like not palatable for the seller, at that point you can discuss things. But up front, to try and get people to cut things down to nothing, all it does is destroy the motivation of the person representing them. And then you've got to offer less to the outside agent. And then it defeats its own purpose. I tell people, you know what? If this amount of money that you want me to, take from my commission makes this deal a bad deal, if that's the difference between a bad deal and a good deal, then this is a bad deal. Bottom line, it's like, it's just natural to try and do that. I mean, it's just human nature. But the reality is, if that bit is really what makes it the difference between this, you accepting this or not accepting this, you shouldn't accept it. That's just my philosophy. But you are right. It's like to negotiate up front, to try and discount something, to me is just like, I think, inappropriate, although it is the nature of the business right now.
It is. So
but
Gene, I have a question. Yeah. I have a question for you. You've got kids. So
Right.
have you ever had a situation we've had people on our show that have had pretty funny stories dealing with animals, at showings with their buyers or sellers or with kids. Have you had any funny experiences in your career with dealing with children during your business or with animals?
Animals. I'll go with animals. I was showing a house on Perugia Way.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for my client. And I see this little 8-week-old puppy going down the driveway. And I'm thinking, it's a lost puppy. So I get the puppy and I put it in the car. And it's like a yelper. And I'm going, oh my God, what is happening here? So I have this dog in the car. My clients show up. I can't bring the dog in the house to show it. So the dog's in the car. I let the window down. I show the property. I come out. My clients are talking. The dog's barking. So I hold the dog and I go, let's go to the next house, right? And so I'm doing 4 showings, babysitting a baby dog who I had for 14 years, by the way. I called him after a street in Bel Air. I called him Bentley. after
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't call them Perugia, but, and I ended up selling them a house. I sold them the house where I found the dog. It was the funniest thing. It was crazy.
That's
So
good.
that was my experience with animals.
Yeah. We had a friend of ours who was on the show who was talking about a client. The client said they had to walk their pet, and he leaned down and leashed up a bunny.
Yeah, I do
A
remember.
bunny. Oh
A
my God.
bunny.
A bunny.
A bunny. He's like looking at it's a seller, a guy he was interviewing to sell the house. He goes, I have to walk my pet. He goes, okay, I'll go with you. And he basically went and leashed up a bunny.
And you had to walk with him with a bunny.
Had to walk with him with the
You were
bunny.
probably going, what is happening here? Oh my God. Well, I know there's some properties of Bel Air that have llamas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I used to go look at the llamas a lot. I heard there was a pig. There was a huge pig at someone's property. So and then also in the Moraga Estates, he had an aviary where the whole backyard was all netted off. So you had to go through a gate to then go through a gate, and you'd go, and the birds were all flying around. It was pretty crazy. It was like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, right.
It was the wildest thing. I mean,
Wow.
it was amazing. But another crazy story was I was shown the property, and I know this has happened to you guys, where they give you the wrong alarm code, or you just miss it. So house in Lower Bel Air again. I opened the door. I'm trying to hit the code, and it's just blaring. And I did a whole 20-minute showing. No one even shows up. Cops didn't even show up with the alarm blaring. I mean, it was like you should just put like the siren right in my ear. And I'm going to this room, here's the room with the fireplace and the view, and it's bing, bing, bing. Crazy.
I had that same thing happen.
The craziest thing.
Yeah. And if you don't have if they call and you forget what the code word is.
Oh man, that's stressful.
And it costs money, every time they show up.
Right.
Security people,
It does.
It was embarrassing. I mean, how do you concentrate and show a property with the alarm going off?
I find it horrible just when those smoke alarms are going off. That is so
when they're out of batteries and they're dinging.
Yeah.
Can't figure out which one it is.
We had that the other day on Stone Canyon. We were doing a showing to a celebrity, and all of a sudden, and the electricity had been shut off from the previous tenant. So when we got in there, and the surge had come on, the alarm went off, all the smoke detectors went off, all the noise, screaming, and all that. So I had to shut all the power down to shut everything off at that point. But yeah, no, it's nerve-wracking, and it's very distracting. You're panicking, running around, trying to figure out how to turn it off, and
Well, I imagine, in today's environment, I read about it all the time. It's very sad with, these drive home robberies and all that kind of stuff in these open houses. It was like, some of the things that I did, I didn't think about. I just did it. Sure. Today, you probably couldn't do that. I mean, today it would be very serious. I mean, one time I took a client who I sold a house to, and I said, we need to go look at this property. And I go up the driveway, and we're in the backyard, and all of a sudden this guy comes out and with his shotgun. He said, "Get off my property." And I'm sitting there and I'm shaking in my feet because this guy has a shotgun loaded, pointing at my client, and I am going, "Oh my God, this is embarrassing."
I think one of your talents. I think one of your talents was trespassing.
Trespassing,
yeah. And things
I mean, I would have a free out of jail pass. I was playing Monopoly. Yeah. I mean, it was go for it. I thought the house was vacant. Again, it was a house that I thought was vacant.
Yeah,
it was a 200 block of Bel Air Road. Actually, wow. Eisner and what's his name bought the property.
Right. Wow.
That was nuts. But I told Bob about this story, and I want to share it because we meet so many unusual people that unreal things are real because of the amount of wealth and the power that these people have. So whenever you get a call, you have to kind of take it seriously. So a friend of mine called me one time and said, "Hey, Gene, I have this really wealthy guy and they want to buy a property. And, he's coming up and, can you give me your referral? I said, hey, no problem. If you say this guy's a rock solid, we're good. So we set up a showing in Bel Air, and I see this entourage of 7 Ford Explorers, like kind of going in one trail. And I'm going, here they are, they're coming. So they come up and they all get out. And the first couple of cars were bodyguards, and these 6'8", 6'9" professional bodyguards come out. And I'm thinking, oh my God. And they are Versace'd out, like brand new alligator cowboy boots. So I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty crazy. Guy comes up, he says, how you doing? Walk through the house, nice. Go to the next house, nice. And then a couple of days later, because he says, let's make an offer. I said, okay, great. So I said, I need to come meet you and discuss the financing. So I don't know what hotel at the time he was at. I don't know if he was at the Western Marquis or the Bel Air Hotel. He was in so many different hotels. So I met with him, and I go to the hotel room and I knock on the door, and one of his bodyguards comes up and he says, come in, sit down, wait for the boss, So I go, okay, this is really good. All right. So he eventually calls me back into the room, and this guy's sitting on the bed, and he opens up this briefcase and he starts throwing these $100 bills around. He goes, I got tons of money, but I just don't, you have to tell the people I deal in cash. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll discuss it. So when you go to another broker and you say a guy's dealing in cash, they don't want to deal with you. So I went back to the guy and said, it's not going to work. Let me know when we could figure out some banking relationship. I'll give you all the connections and all that kind of stuff. So he said, no problem. A couple weeks go by. He said, Gene, you know something? They won't allow me to give cash as a deposit at a hotel. Can I use your credit card to put as the credit for my room, and I'll pay you back? I said, one of the reasons why I'm trying to get you deals because I maxed out my credit cards, and I can't do that. Unfortunately, I'm broke. But I really, and that's what I said, Bob. I said, I maxed out on the card, and I really need to make this deal with you. Right. He says, I feel for you. I said, no problem. Okay. So then he disappears for 2 or 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden the phone call comes in, and he says, Gene, come meet me at the Bel Air Hotel. So I go down to the Bel Air Hotel, and he's in a suite that's probably $2,000 a night, $2,500 a night. And I'm thinking, my God, it's like the Peninsula Hotel for a week, and then he's at the W Hotel for a week, and then he's at the Four Seasons for a week, and now he's at the Bel Air Hotel for a week. And the guy's just throwing me for a loop. I just couldn't peg this guy.
Right.
So I go visit him. He says, Gene, I need a favor from you. I said, oh my God. He said, okay, what do you want? He goes, I have a safe with $9 million in it that I need to store for the weekend. And I go, you have a safe with $9 million in it, and you want me to store it? He says, yeah, I trust you. So my friend who I was doing this whole transaction with says, oh, this is crazy. So I said, okay, fine. Let's kind of do this under the radar. I said, where do you want me to pick up the safe? He says, you go to the W Hotel, or the Western Marquis at the time, and we'll transfer from one trunk to your trunk. Huh. We're good. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So I said, okay, fine. So I go to the W Hotel, right where the W Hotel, right where the valet is. There's no one there. It was like 11 o'clock at night, or it was dead. And he takes this safe. His bodyguard takes the safe out, which was, I don't know, bigger than what would fit in my trunk. So we're trying to put the safe in front of the hotel in my trunk, and it's not fitting.
Oh, God.
And it's covered with a sheet. So then we throw it in the back seat. We drive up, go to my house, and I'm sitting there with my partner going, what did we just do? And we're looking at this safe, and we're trying to figure out how big is $9 million? you know, because like an inch is 10,000. We're going like this. So we're going, yeah, it's big enough for $9 million. So we had it over the weekend, and I'm sweating bullets. I'm going like, oh my God, there's going to be some people coming up here and just sticking me up, stealing the money or doing something crazy. Nothing happened, thank God. And all of a sudden it went dormant. I didn't hear from the guy anymore. And then the guy who referred me to this guy said, yeah, he's being prosecuted for fraud. And I go, what are you talking about? He says, yeah, this guy has been stealing from these churches who have been giving him money to go invest and to buy real estate. And I said, well, what's up with the cars? He said he went to a Ford dealership, and I guess the Ford dealer took on the story and said, hey, I'll lease you all these 7 Ford Explorers. He stopped paying on it. He then went to a clothing place and got all these high expensive clothes, must have spent $100,000 or $150,000 on all his bodyguards and stuff like that. And it was absolutely insane. And then I go, what is in the safe? So my buddy and I, we break open the safe. We threw it off a building. We're hitting it with sledgehammers. It took forever to open up. And there was a sheet and a pillow in there. And we're laughing, going, oh my God.
Oh my God.
But this guy was doing this. He was borrowing people's credit card as a deposit for the hotel.
He asked you.
What?
Like he asked you.
When the credit card would get maxed out, he then would go to another hotel, do it for a week until it was maxed out. But like I said before, you have to take everything serious because you can't judge a book by its cover. I mean, there have been very successful people that I have met that you wouldn't think would have anything, and they could buy the whole street. And then these other people come in with all the flash, and it was like, a big fraud, got thrown in jail. Thank God. An FBI agent called me and said, do you know this guy? I said, no, I was just a real estate agent and I had no part of it. So I can't really help you on that. But that was a crazy thing. That really was pretty crazy.
Well, that's an amazing story.
That's an amazing story. It's like a movie.
It's like a movie. I mean,
like a movie plot.
I mean, all the bodyguards and we'd go in these rooms with meetings and he'd turn on the TV. And it's like, wow. And we're like sitting in the room screaming at each other. I'm going, what is going on? What's the TV? We don't want anyone to hear. I go, what are you talking about? Just turn the damn thing down. I mean, he had this lawyer on the hook. He had everybody on the hook because once you're on the hook for $10,000, $20,000, then you're chasing your money to get it back.
Exactly.
So he had all these people chasing it. And we're just sitting there part of like looking at this stuff going, this is nuts. I mean,
that was fast of you to go with the max credit card deal.
Yeah, you have to think on your feet. I mean, because it happens a lot. I mean, they really try to, people try to take advantage. Even the really wealthy people, if they feel that they can get the upper hand, they'll hit it to you. So
right, and you do have to think on your feet. I had this one guy. I was doing a TV show for a property I listed up in Sonoma, and he was a really cool client. He represented some major like music celebrities and stuff. And he hit me up called me on the phone when I was about to do this NBC shoot on this property and said, hey, can you just, loan me, I think it was 18 or 19 grand for this payment. And I'm thinking, this is like not right. Okay. This doesn't make sense. And I just said, hey, he said he needed it right away. And I said, I can't wire you the money because it's after like 2 p.m. or whatever. So, and I'm out of town, blah, blah. And eventually he was evicted from the place I had leased him.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like, you might as well just figure you're losing the 20 grand. If someone really is hitting you up like that, you kiss the money goodbye. But you got to think on your feet. Luckily, it was like literally past the wiring time. And he blew it by saying he needed it right then. If he would have said, hey, in the next couple of days, and I wouldn't have had that excuse, but it was perfect,
I mean, and Bob, it's really interesting because I've lost 2 deals by literally hours. The first deal was on Mapleton before the Caissons bought that property at Mapleton. I had a client that wanted to buy the deal, and I just could not find a fax machine at the time. So I drove from where the people were to the broker. And by the time I was able to drive from where they were to the broker, a deal had already been signed. It was so upsetting. Yeah. And then another time I have a counteroffer. And you know this already, that a person who sends a counteroffer, if they email or whatever in writing or by text or by wire, canceling that counteroffer, it's dead.
Right, it's toast.
So I get this counteroffer for a property on Perugia, and I go to the guy and said, "Hey, this is a great counteroffer." I said, "You need to sign this counteroffer. The people are really skittish." And he said, "Let me think about it." 1 o'clock in the morning, I get this text or whatever they sent at the time that the counteroffer was rescinded. Wow. Lost the deal.
Yeah.
They got cold feet.
Yeah. Well, now it's not, you can't get there fast enough because there's 20 offers on everything.
Oh my God. It's painful.
Crazy. It's very painful that it's just changed so much right now. But, well, Jean, this has really been a blast catching up.
Can I say I have one more great story.
Yeah, I'd love to. Let's go for it.
Right.
Sure.
So Perugia was I sold like 10 homes on Perugia. So Perugia.
I remember you were the big Perugia.
Yeah. I had a client who I sold a couple homes to, and we were in escrow on a property on Perugia. And what happened was, sometimes people have, bipolar, and, they just because they're wealthy doesn't mean they're not immune to, certain things. So this one particular client, I didn't know at the time was bipolar. And so 1 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call, and it's this person on the phone. And she goes, "Gene, I trust you, and, talk to this police officer." So the police officer is on the phone and says, "Can you help us out here?" She's asking for a police escort back to her house because she walked from the house in Bel Air all the way to this house that I was in escrow on Perugia. And she was knocking on the door at like 12:30, talking to the owners. Wow. And they called the police.
Right, sure.
And I'm thinking, oh my God. So I get dressed. I go over to the house. I go up to her. I said, "Hey, everything's okay." She goes, "Gene, they're coming to get me. There's helicopters out there. There's people on the golf course and all that kind of stuff." And I'm thinking, wow, it was like so touching that she called me. So I said, "Hey, everything's going to be okay. Get in the car." And I went to the sellers. I said, "I'm very sorry." I mean, one of the owners was not even well. I mean, he was like very sick, and the wife was upset. I said, "No problem. It's just, we'll deal with it another time." So we get in the car, and I have a police escort. There must have been at least 5 or 6 police cars following me through Bel Air, up to her house. Okay. And then when we got to the house, I then had to get her in the house. Okay. So I knocked on the door. Her husband answers the door.
Wow.
Totally in a different space. And I explained the story, and the police officers all walked in. I calmed the police. I said, "No problem. It's a dead issue. It's okay." I said goodnight to everyone. And I'm thinking, what just happened? What just
Didn't your husband miss her? Didn't her husband know she was gone?
He didn't know where he was. I mean, he couldn't even stand up. I mean, he's like at the door going, "Hey, Gene, what's happening?" I go, "Okay, I just wanted to bring your wife back, just because she had went for a walk, I mean, but she had to walk a mile. She walked a mile to this house. We ended up closing the deal, and it was okay. Wow. But I mean, being a real estate agent, you have to deal with a lot of things. It's not always glamour. It's a lot of sad things, divorces and, illness, deaths. I mean, thank God I've never walked in a house where someone was dead. I'm very thankful about that. I mean, I've been to houses where people have died and they said that's where they died, but never been in a house where I came in and then they were just laying on the floor.
And the apartment manager had gone ahead. He goes, "Can I get it for less now?"
Well, Valerie, that's really funny that you said that, because when I bought 642 Perugia,
Yeah.
it had fallen out of escrow a couple of times. I went to the owners. I said, would you mind if I bought the house? They said, no problem. So called a buddy of mine. We got up the down payment, and I had a loan for like 25% because who's going to let me?
This is so much fun. I hope you'll join us again. We love
I'd love to. I mean, it's just, this is the first time I've ever done this. This is enjoyable, but it's nice to speak about this stuff, because if you tell people these things and they think you're crazy, but I mean, you could bring up any topic with me and I've pretty much confronted it. I mean, it's just, it's just, when you're in the mix, you're in the mix. I mean, it's like, it's pretty unusual.
Yeah.
100%. We got to have Gino back for sure.
Yeah. That's what's fun about doing this show, because the listeners, they're all over the world and they love our wild stories. They're so different. People don't realize what goes on behind the deal. And when they hear the stories, it puts a whole different light on what our job is and what we do and how we have to land on our feet and, deal with each other and deal with the clients. And
it's a lot of personalities, and it's like we really have to think on our feet. We have to be very diplomatic. We have to be professional, and that's why we have a value, because it makes a big difference. Because when you let the principals get together, I mean, I lost a deal because the guy was mad that the guy took the drapes out the night before the closing. And the guy says, I'll give you $50,000 for these 25-year-old drapes.
Yeah.
And the guy said, you can cancel or I give you $50,000. So the guy was brilliant. He cancels. And I found out the next day, I said, what did you just do? And the deal fell out and it was sold within hours. He didn't realize what he lost, but over drapes that were like worth nothing.
Oh yeah. We've all seen crazy stuff like that.
It happens all the time to all of us. Definitely. We've all been down there. We got to do some more of these stories, but I want to really wrap this up and just say thank you for joining us so much. And
Gene, great having you, man.
Bob, always great seeing you and talking to you. Valerie, keep up the great work. I mean, I love your emails, and I know you're doing so well. It's awesome. I'm really happy.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon, brother.
We'll talk soon.
You got it, man.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
You got it. Bye-bye.
Hey, Bobby. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I told you, Gene would be unbelievable. His stories are incredible. He was always a character. We always had a lot of laughs. Totally, all personality, pure sales. This is a great guy.
Yeah, great storyteller too. He's got that robust, the real drama to his stories. And,
I could listen to him all day. He's great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Well, listeners, you've been amazing tuning in every week to join us on our Real Estate Real Laughs. Share the love. Tell a friend. Go to our website, realestatereallaughs.com. Sign up, or you can go to YouTube and catch our videos there as well. Bobby, love you. Love it.
Love you too. Fun as always.
Yeah.
Talk to you next week.
You bet. All right, hon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Real Estate Real Laughs with Valerie Fitzgerald and Bob Hurwitz. Enjoyed the show? Then head on to ValerieFitzgerald.com and thehjc.com. This episode's show notes and more fun episodes. Join us again for real fun and a lot of laughs here on Real Estate Real Laughs.